Assalamu alaikum. Let's jump right into introducing our final year project, EyeSee. EyeSee will be a revolutionary new tool in the arsenal of optometric and ophthalmological technology. EyeSee will serve as a one-stop solution to all fundamental eye care for every individual with a smartphone and internet access.
The human eye is one of the most important organs of the human body, providing one of the five bodily senses, i.e., the sense of sight. While the eye is extremely important to normal bodily functioning, it is equally at risk for a multitude of diseases, disorders, and infections. The conventional way to diagnose an eye related issue is to go to a number of specialists and have a number of scans done on the said eye. This conventional way of diagnosis is not only time consuming and cumbersome, but is also extremely expensive here in Pakistan. Furthermore, eye specialists and equipment for high risk diagnosis is limited and very rare to find. To cater to this problem, EyeSee automates the process of eye ailment diagnosis. It caters to a number of possible diseases, disorders, and infections of the eye. It is free of cost and available to everyone, everywhere, regardless of their financial status or geographic location, making eye care a basic resource, not a luxury.
Disease diagnosis. The human eye can suffer from a number of diseases, most of which are clinically diagnosed, which means that they can be diagnosed simply by examining the symptoms and the signs of the disease with the naked eye. In order to diagnose a disease, for example, in the conventional way, an individual will simply visit a doctor who will examine the eye in bright lighting and nothing but their naked eye, and ultimately diagnose the disease and prescribe the further steps. The diseases that EyeSee caters to include glaucoma, endophthalmitis, cataract, ocular cancer, and ocular albinism. EyeSee automates this process of clinical diagnosis by simply allowing users to capture an image of their eye, upload it into the application, and provide a generated report to the users. The human eye can suffer from a number of physical disorders. These are physical disabilities in the vision or the normal functioning of the eye. EyeSee will cater to a multitude of disorders of the eye, including bulging eyes, cross eyes, strabismus, or heterochromia. And EyeSee will, much like disease diagnosis, use user inputted images to diagnose on pre trained machine learning models and generate a report for the users for their physical disorder diagnosis. The human eye can contract infections from bacteria and virus molecules that come into contact with the pupil or the iris of the eye. This can cause pain, discoloration, and inflammation, which, if left undiagnosed, can lead to vision loss and fatal organ failure. EyeSee provides automated infection diagnosis and follow up steps in a matter of minutes, removing the need to physically go to a doctor and have a simple infection diagnosed. Fundus analysis. Some fatal diseases cannot simply be clinically diagnosed. In such cases, patients are prescribed to get fundus scans done, which are essentially hollow internal images of the eyeball. These scans are not only expensive, but the analysis of these scans and their consequent follow up appointments can only be done by specialists who are rare and expensive in Pakistan. EyeSee automates this process of analyzing fundus scans so that the patients can save money and obtain timely diagnosis of diseases such as diabetes, glaucoma, pathological myopia, hypertension, and age related macular degeneration. If these diseases are caught on time and in a timely manner, they can be life saving. While most people might assume that diseases, disorders, and infections are one and the same, they simply are not. Diseases are the particular process in the body with a specific cause and a specific symptom. Disorders, on the other hand, are physical disabilities which hinder the normal functioning of the eye and usually are physically visible in both eyes. Infections are simply a state of inflammation within the eye when it comes into contact with a foreign body. EyeSee aims to reflect real-world processes as much as possible. Processing techniques will vary from disease, disorder, and infection in EyeSee as well. EyeSee will diagnose diseases by processing a single image of a single eye. EyeSee will diagnose disorders by processing a single image of both of the eyes. EyeSee will diagnose infections by processing a single image of a single inflamed eye.
Because IC is a one and all solution, in addition to the diagnosis, it provides a number of other additional functionalities. These include, first of all, the virtual assistant. IC is catered to the general public. It provides assistance for navigating and understanding the app. You are very familiar with Google Assistant and Apple's Siri. IC Assistant is nothing different. Just tap on the mic, say whatever you want, and IC will respond to you in a matter of seconds. E-Diary. IC allows users to keep track of their appointments and their medication schedules by setting up reminders for themselves, be it one-time occurrence or a regularly timed medicine. Patient communities. Most hospitals and medical communities provide support systems which help the mental fatigue of the patient. Similarly, IC provides a community for patients to interact with one another and in the form of threads. Users can post threads, tag threads to specific discussion areas, answer to thread readers' opinions, vote on threads, and search or browse threads. After IC performs the automated diagnosis, it uses the user's current location to display a list of nearby hospitals, medical centers, clinics, and pharmacies for the user to have the option to follow up on their diagnosis. The important features allow users to test their vision health by undergoing a number of tests. There are three different tests. First of all, which is visual acuity test. It detects the person's ability to discern or distinguish objects and features, testing their ocular health. Second one is the duochrome test. It diagnoses whether the user is suffering from myopia, which is nearsightedness, or hyperopia, which is farsightedness, via an interactive test which will gauge the user's ocular clarity on different wavelength images and consequently examining their responses. Last one is the near vision test. We are using the latest technologies from tech giants like Google and Microsoft. Flutter is a software development kit made by Google. They made initially Flutter for Android, but gradually they spread it over almost all of the major platforms, including iOS, web, Windows, Mac, and Linux. We have chosen Flutter because its efficiency is second to none. Flutter uses GPU to render the frames, hence leaving the CPU idle for other tasks as Firebase. We have restricted and minimized the usage of Firebase only for authentication and some other instantly needed synchronization. The main reason, however, is authentication because first, Google security is unmatched, and second, it allows G sign-in. The brains of this project is machine learning. TensorFlow is an open source library developed by Google and is arguably the most widely used machine learning library used nowadays. All of the models deployed on IC are made using TensorFlow, which later on are converted to TF Lite models so they can easily run on mobile devices which have limited capacity of CPU and GPU. The main database of IC is SQLite, which, as its name suggests, uses SQL. It integrates with Flutter seamlessly through the plugin SQFlite and allows all of the CRUD operations. We are using SQLite for the storing and retrieval of all the data such as user information, which includes the user's passwords, names, and profile pictures, the patient's history, reminders of the patients, and the previous test diagnosis results.
Let's take a quick sample walkthrough of the application. The user will open EyeSee and will first sign up or log in. If he or she is already registered, then simply adding in the login credentials will guide the user to the main page. EyeSee processes the image and generates the report for the user. If the user chooses to interact with the other users on the application, he or she can proceed towards Community tab. Finally, if the user wishes to set some reminders for doctor's appointments or medications, then they can do so in the e-diary section.
Class of 2021, Department of Computer Science, COMSATS University, Islamabad.
Under the supervision of Ms. Hafiza Sundus Farooq.